All right, everybody, it's that time of the summer. Our 2021 A Look Inside series. We're beginning this year with the Jaguars, the Jets, and the Texans. And this week, we've got not one, but two special guests. Joe, our normal host, couldn't be here this week, so we bring on the young phenom himself, the young fantasy mind. Hutchinson Brown is filling in as host. And our guest of honor, Fantasy Alarm's Howard Bender. You do not want to miss this. Stay tuned.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. Joe, as Joshua said, is unable to make it, so I will be your host for the next 2 weeks. And Woo! I'm just so pumped, so excited to be able to host this show. And guys, we've got a very, very, very special guest with us. We've got Howard Bender at RotoBuzzGuy on Twitter. He's a vice president of operations at Fantasy Alarm. And a little quick fun fact about Howard. Me, my dad and Howard Bender were great friends bartending together when they were younger. And they're still good friends today. And Howard, just quickly, man, I just really want to thank you, starting my Twitter page and all that stuff. You were just a big help. And when I see you, because you have such a big platform with Fantasy Alarm, you have like 22,000 followers or whatever. And when I see you retweet my stuff, I'm just super appreciative because I know a lot of people are going to see that. And I'm just really appreciative of how you've supported me so far.
Well, thank you very much. Beautiful intro, guys. Thanks for having me here, Ryan, Josh, Hutch. What can I say, dude? Listen, when your dad first told me that you were into fantasy football, I mean, like a little piece of my heart grew like a little bit bigger there because, for anybody out there who doesn't know, Hutch's dad, singer-songwriter. Actually, when I first knew him, it was. But you know what? Come on, listen. You give your dad
once a singer, always a singer.
Yeah, you give your dad.
You don't lose that spicy baritone. Come on,
sorry, Dad.
Come on. What do you mean? Sorry, no way. Throw him a guitar. Ask him to play Pocket Change. It's absolutely my favorite song that your dad used to do back in the day. So yeah, when I heard that you were a fantasy guy, oh, dude, it made me so happy. I was like, and then when your dad said that you guys were doing a fantasy league together, I was like, oh, you got to show this young punk up, man. Here's a subscription to Fantasy Alarm. Here's some gear. Here's the draft guide. Here's the cheat sheet. Whatever you need. I just, you got to slap that kid down, man. You got to do it. And I heard he might have finished ahead of you too.
Yeah, what happened with that?
It was very frustrating. Yeah, he did. Oh,
now, what's funny is Josh had drew up the show sheets for these and listed you, Howard, as one of the dream guests for this show because we knew you were a Jets fan. And then everything fell into place where Hutch was going to need to be the host. So this was serendipitous.
It's almost like we planned this.
You guys are like, all right, new kid hosting. Howard Bender is a guest.
We're going to make them all nervous. We're going to bring the great Howard Bender on. Yeah. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
But we're breaking down the 3 worst teams in the NFL too. It's like, let's sift through the garbage here.
We had to make it easy for Hutch. Come on now.
I was going to say, when you have great co-hosts, you pick bad teams because they'll make it entertaining. So.
Yeah.
Oh, well, again, thank you so much for having me, guys. Real pleasure, man. Real pleasure to be here.
Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
Oh, yeah. So today's show, guys, we're looking at the start of Club Fantasy's A Look Inside team previews. We're doing 3 teams per episode. And today we got, as we just mentioned, we have Jaguars, the Jets, and the Texans to talk about today. Look, so let's start with the Jaguars. Last year's record, they were 1-15. They've got a new coach in Urban Meyer. And I'm just going to quickly read through these names. So upside players from Ryan and Josh, both Marvin Jones. The downside players, upside means, relative to where they drafted, they could finish much higher. That's what upside basically means. They both have Marvin Jones on that list. Downside, players who are being drafted relative to a spot where they have a big opportunity to finish much lower than where they're being drafted. Ryan's guy is James Robinson. Josh's guy is DJ Chark. And then trust fall guys that look, if you're going to pick one guy from this team, who do you trust? Ryan's guy, DJ Chark, Josh's guy, Trevor Lawrence. The rookies to watch, look, I mean, it's pretty much self-explanatory. Rookies to watch, Ryan and Josh both said Travis Etienne. And then we got Joe. Joe put in a little thing here. Joe's sleeper is Laviska Shenault Jr. And he also said he likes Marvin Jones if he falls to the wide receiver 40-45 range. And he says, I trust Samantha Previti. And she's a Visca stan, so it kind of works. And then Joe's IDP guy, Joe Schobert. Am I saying that right? Joe Schobert?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Most underrated linebacker in all of football, according to Joe. Now, I'm not a huge IDP guy, so I'm not really.
Neither are we. We just let Joe have fun.
This is how I keep Joe happy and him employed with us. I let him talk about his defensive players. I give him one show every year, and I let him do these things on the Look Inside series. Makes him happy. It's a small price to pay.
All right. So Howard put in his player to watch for good or bad reason. Just a player to watch, whether it's good or bad, whether it's a breakout or a bust. Who's your guy, Howard?
So I went with Laviska Shenault as well. I mean, it's going to be real interesting to see what happens with the Jaguars this year. I really, Urban Meyer and bring in Darrell Bevell, to run this offense. What I find very interesting and, a little odd about this whole thing is, Darrell Bevell's like a run first guy. I mean, I don't know if that was because he was so tied together with Pete Carroll or not, but he was definitely always, about handing the ball off. I mean, back in the Marshawn Lynch days and then, moving over to Chris Carson and things like that. So it's weird having, the run first mentality there of Darrell Bevell mixed with Urban Meyer, who loves to, the run and gun and throwing the ball downfield as much as possible. When you get a young rookie quarterback, like you get here with Trevor Lawrence, there is going to be a learning curve. And, the short, quick timing routes tend to be a little bit more favorable. It's why you see them lean on tight ends so much. It's why you see them lean on the slot receivers so much. So when you get a guy like Laviska Shenault, who probably will run out of the slot the majority of the time, that's really kind of where we're at. So that's, I think Shenault could be a guy, especially in PPR formats, who could help move the chains.
I think it's a great call too, because there's also not really a tight end, and please don't bring up Tim Tebow, but there's not really a tight end on the team.
You did that, Ryan. I just want to preface that. You did that.
Yeah. But Shenault is going to fill that. I'm not saying he's a tight end, but he's going to fill that short-term intermediate role almost by himself, because there's really not anybody at the tight end position who would also fill that role. So that's a really good point with him there.
My biggest issue with Shenault. Go ahead.
Oh, and then Marvin Jones and DJ Chark are both deep threats as well. So Laviska is the only guy that can do. I mean, DJ Chark and Marvin Jones can do short routes, but Laviska is definitely going to be the best guy to do those shorter routes, and he's just going to have all the opportunity in that offense. So I love this pick for a breakout.
My biggest thing with Shenault is it's really kind of twofold. So the first domino here was Urban Meyer brought in, he wanted Kadarius Toney, right? He wanted Toney to kind of be that sort of gadget guy for his offense. We all know what Shenault is able to do, not just as a receiver, but really just with the ball in his hands. You can do these sort of pick and pop bubble screens, the shorter underneath routes. He runs and he's built like a freaking running back.
Handoffs too.
That's just how he plays. Exactly. That's what he did back in college. I mean, going back to 2018 at Colorado, he ran out of the slot over 50% of the time. So we know he's able to do that, even though last year they really did not work him into the slot at all, really. He was only about 27.5% from there. That was sort of like Dede Westbrook before he got hurt. They used Keelan Cole in that role as well. Neither of those guys are here this year. You bring in Marvin Jones, who knows Darrell Bevell's offense, from their time in Detroit. And Howard, you brought it up. Bevell likes to run the football, and that goes all the way back to his Minnesota days with Chester Taylor, Adrian Peterson, just being able to control the clock. You go from Peterson to Marshawn to Chris Carson to what he's had in Detroit, which really isn't much of anything. And it's like, all right, well, I've just got to throw the football out of necessity. You bring in Trevor Lawrence, who knows how to throw the football out of necessity. There's a lot of moving parts here, and that's why, for me, it's hard to get behind Laviska Shenault in this instance, just for that simple fact that he's going around the wide receiver 40. Some people think he has wide receiver 3, even wide receiver 2 upside in this offense. I don't know. I feel like the only way that's going to happen is if we see an injury from Marvin Jones or an injury from G.J. Chark, which are two things that have happened very recently in the past.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It definitely makes sense. I mean, I could definitely see that, especially if they do use ETN more as a receiver than they do as that. But yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. I feel like those deep routes are going to be tougher. They're going to be easier to defend is really what it comes down to. If you put a spy onto ETN wherever he lines up, and then you've got your corners, it's going to be a little easier to defend because you're not going to have as much over the middle where Shenault can probably thrive a little bit more. So, well, good points, though. Good
Yeah, and they don't also have the greatest offensive line to protect that, for them to throw that deep ball.
I really worry about this team. I think this team on the first go out is going to be rough. I mean, Urban Meyer's been taking a lot of flack for that draft. He's taking a lot of flack for the move. Yeah,
this is a team that should have spent all of their early picks. They should have spent all of their early picks on offensive linemen and defensive talent. Period.
Yeah, like
outside of Lawrence at 1, like defense. And they had, Travis Etienne. You have an undrafted free agent who just put up 1,000 freaking yards, and now you want to just say the best investment in all of football. Oh, we don't need that. We're just going to do the worst investment now in football. You don't spend first-round picks on running backs. It's not rocket science.
It doesn't work. And also with the run, with the run heaviness comments you guys put out there, since they didn't really draft any defense, this defense is going to suck and they're going to be behind and they're not going to be able to run the balls even if they want to. They're not going to be able to run the ball. Nope. They're going to have to throw. I think we could see Trevor Lawrence have a Joe Burrow type of season because this offensive line sucks. This defense sucks. The weapons are good. So I think he could just ball out this season.
Are you
Joe Burrow, just get hit tons?
Well, are you predicting he'll be broken after 10 games?
Yeah, right. There goes another knee. Oh, wow.
No,
don't you put that bad juju on my rookie of the year, okay?
But
I don't want to hear
it. He gets hit a lot. He's going to get hit a lot this season. Yeah. It's definitely concerning for fantasy football.
I have Lawrence right now, and again, this is kind of like my first go through with projections this year. I have him slated right now for almost 4,500 passing yards.
Oh yeah,
you think they're going to have to throw a lot. So
they're going to have to throw a lot, but again, as I'm doing this, realizing that adding a 17th game just blows everything up. And I'm like, I don't know if all of these teams are going to be throwing this much, but then I'm like, well, I mean, you add another game, it makes sense that these bad teams are going to have to keep throwing.
Yeah.
And Lawrence has that type of capability. I mean, I don't think you're a number 1 overall pick if you can't carry an offense with your arm. And that's what Lawrence has the ability to do. So it would not shock me one bit to see him throw at the very minimum over 4,000 yards if he makes it through.
He's got Blake Bortles written all over him.
Yeah.
Please stop. Damn it, Howard, stop.
Now, the one thing I want to throw out, we've been talking about how Bevel would prefer to run first. I was digging into the numbers, and everyone wants to make a big deal that Jacksonville had the fewest rushing attempts in the league last year, and that's likely to come up. Well, Detroit had the 3rd fewest with Bevel there and also a bad team. So the huge hope for James Robinson in this running game in general with this rise in attempts, it may not happen in year 1. And I'm not saying it's not going to happen a little bit further down the road, but Howard kind of hit it on the head. To start off, this is going to be a rough couple of games for this team because they're in huge prove it mode already. And when you're this young, you shouldn't have to prove things already. But my goodness, they have to already prove things. I do like the weapons. I've talked about this 1,000 times.
Yeah.
For deep threats, Chark and Jones, I like the way Lawrence throws the deep ball. I like the way he throws the fade. But if that line doesn't give them time, it's just not going to work. I really like to go back and look at what you might see out of Laviska is Curtis Samuel in his final year with Urban Meyer was kind of used as both a receiver and a running back. He had 15 total touchdowns that year, 8 rushing, 7 receiving. I feel like that might be the vision. Visca has that kind of body that Urban at Ohio State loved to make a feature of his offense, but it didn't have a direct A-to-A correlation to a position in the NFL. And that's why we saw Samuel, who kind of came out as a running back, get treated as a wide receiver. And I feel like we might run into that with Visca, which could, for fantasy managers, pay off greatly.
But see, that's my issue there, because he went out and said, Chenault's not my guy. I want Tony. Tony wasn't there. I want ETN. That's why I'm not sold. Like, everybody's like, oh, Visca's going to have 50 rushing attempts, blah, 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 this and that. He's fairly capable of doing that. We know that. But it's not like, I don't know that it's going to be what all of us fantasy managers actually want to happen. And the other thing too is how much influence Meyer's going to have over Bevel, who's been an offensive coordinator in this league for a very long time. That's the other side of it for me.
Yeah, he's still the coach.
I'm also waiting for Urban Meyer to just be like, after 8 games, oh man, we've only won 1 game. All right, guys, bye. And just pull like a Bobby Petrino or Nick Saban and quit.
Oh, goodness.
Maybe.
I'm waiting for it.
So
I'm
Spurrier his way out of here.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It's definitely possible. All right, I think we're going to move on real quick. So, look, you guys have a big disagreement here on the downsides in the trust fall. Josh, you have DJ Chark as a downside, while Ryan has him as a trust fall. Why do you guys have him in that, and why do you guys disagree?
For me, I just think DJ Chark is going to fall into the alpha role. I understand Marvin Jones is more familiar with the Bevel system. I feel like Chark is used to being the alpha there. I think he's going to fall into being the alpha there, and everything's new. I feel like he's going to see this as a way to just play better and kind of start over anew himself. For me, injuries kind of hurt the breakout last year, and bad QB play, which is the last time I'll say that. I will not down talk Gardner Minshew, but it definitely didn't help. The big change from 2019 to 2020 was a big drop in red zone and end zone targets. He only saw about half of the end zone targets that he saw the year before, thus seeing touchdowns drop. I think we're going to see that climb back up with Trevor Lawrence again because of his ability to throw to the corner of the end zone and do things that play well for DJ Chark. I love Marvin Jones. I think Marvin Jones is going to be a great value this year, but he's not getting any younger. Chark, I believe, is just 25, maybe 26 years old. He's getting ready to hit his prime with a very young. Yeah, he may not even be that old. He's getting ready to hit his prime with a very young quarterback, and I think it's just going to play out well for him. And I don't think he's going to cost much when draft season rolls around.
Yeah, for the same reasons that I. Go ahead, Dutch.
Okay. So Ryan, like what you said with his touchdowns going up, that's definitely a real possibility. And I think definitely that will happen because, look, this team is probably going to be in a lot of shootouts since their defense is so bad. And since Trevor Lawrence could probably carry them to a victory, they're going to be a lot of shootouts. It's kind of be like the Chargers. They were just in tons of shootouts last year with their terrible defense, like their really hurt defense. And I think that Trevor Lawrence could provide that for DJ Chark this year.
Same reasons why I'm a little sour on Chark are fairly similar to why I'm sour on Chenault. So with Chenault, we all expect him to fit a certain role. And Urban Meyer said, well, I like ETN in this role that you guys think is good for Chenault. And then there's other people that think that Chenault has the ability to step in and be the wide receiver 1. And if that's the case, it's likely because Chark is either hurt or ineffective.
Yeah.
So I just feel like there's these stepping stones, and Chark is heading into the final year of his deal, does not have a contract for next year. If they drafted Chenault with the idea that he's going to be the wide receiver 1, DJ Chark, unless he absolutely balls out, which I'm not saying can't happen, but if we saw like last year where he gets hurt, he's ineffective, and that plays into it more so than the bad quarterback play, you could see an ascension from Chenault in a different role. And that's where I don't trust Chark where he's being drafted. That's why I would much rather take a flyer on someone like Marvin Jones, who I think could ultimately be relied upon more early because he knows the offensive system.
Yeah, and with the Lions, he was the wide receiver 17 last year. Even with Kenny G being in for 5 games, when he was the number 1 option, he produced some good numbers. And I think we could see that type of season. We could see a wide receiver 2 season from him. it just depends. Like, because DJ Chark could be hurt. Laviska could be like, I don't know, ineffective. He could turn into the number one option of this offense. I think taking a flyer on him is a great choice. I think he's the number one.
So I'll chime in on this debate here because, I mean, I think everybody's got some valid points. You know, Marvin Jones has always been that second guy. He's always been the Z receiver. He's never really been the X receiver for a team. We saw that when he was with Cincinnati. We saw that when he moved over to Detroit. So, you know, while, yeah, I think he understands the system that Darrell Bevell wants to, you know, incorporate in here, we also don't fully know exactly, you know, how much Urban Meyer influence there is going to be on this system, as Ryan pointed out before as well. So, you know, listen, I love DJ Chark. I think he's a fantastic route runner. I think his hands are underrated. The injuries are, you know, an obvious issue here, but yes, he is kind of just getting into his physical prime. He's 25 years. I think he is 25, 26.
About to be 25.
Okay.
He's
so
also 6'4". Like receivers just aren't built that way anymore.
Right.
Like,
with his speed too. Like that's another thing also. I mean, you get guys that are that big and they're limited to like a more vertical game inside the red zone. But you get a guy like Chark who can, you know, spread the field. He can, you know, win the battle with his speed. He can win the jump balls there as well. You know, I think that I do think he needs to toughen up a little bit more to go over the middle and across the middle and take those hits. But, you know, when you're looking at it here, as far as the way it goes, you know, Chark he's going to start the season off as the X receiver. Jones is going to be the Z receiver because Bevell's going to put him where he's comfortable putting him.
Yeah.
Like he's not going to elevate him to, you know, number one wide receiver range just because he's familiar with it. I mean, listen, these guys are all NFL receivers, and Chark has been around for a few years, that he's got the ability to pick up, you know, the offensive scheme fairly easy there. So, you know, I mean, I think both guys, as far as drafting goes, I mean, I'd be interested in both of them. I don't think either one, I agree. I don't think either one is going to cost much of a fortune here, as far as, I don't know, maybe Chark goes for like a 6th or a 7th round draft pick, maybe. I don't even know what the current ADP has him at right now.
I'm pulling that up right now, actually.
Yeah,
so
I assume he's like a 7th, maybe 8th round pick for DJ Chark, right?
Yeah, I mean, he might actually go even a little earlier because, like as you pointed out, Hutch, they're gonna be playing from behind. I mean, that's how Allen Robinson made his bones, right? Allen Robinson was with the Jaguars. Blake Bortles just chucking the ball downfield like crazy while they were behind. And all of a sudden you were like, wow, this Allen Robinson guy is unbelievable. I think Chark can take that next step, you know, legitimately. That doesn't say that Marvin Jones isn't going to be a solid guy. You know, if you look at what Marvin Jones did when he was with Detroit, anytime there was a top cover corner on Kenny Golladay, you were like, man, I'm playing, you know, you were jamming Marvin Jones into your DFS lineups because that was like, that had 100+ yards, 2 touchdown game written all over it.
And it almost always worked.
Right? 60% of the time it worked every time.
So to answer your question, Howard, Chark right now, according to fantasy data, his ADP is wide receiver 31 at 71 overall.
So it's just
in 12-team leagues, you're talking about what?
5th,
6th round?
Yeah, just before the 7th round starts.
What's the overall again? 70 something?
71.
71.
71. In 12-team league, that's the end of the 6th round, I believe.
End of 6th?
End of the 6th round.
I'll take that.
I say that's a round or two cheaper than he was costing you last year. So
it is.
And that's the start of the 8th and 10-team league. So
yeah, I'm willing to take him as a wide receiver 3. But if I go like
if you go wide receiver early, that's a wide receiver 4.
Yeah, if you go wide receivers early, that could be. I usually tend to take my running backs and tight ends early. I don't like to stick myself to that, but that's usually what I tend to do. I usually wait a little bit on receivers, but I would
be pay dividends with that this
3
year
if he falls to that spot.
Yeah, if you're sitting there, like if you're picking on the wheel this year, then you could probably turn Chark into like your wide receiver 4 because you'll probably end up taking like, you know, you'll double tap that receiver slot there because everybody's leaving you Devontae Adams and you know.
Yep. Yeah, and at that point, it definitely becomes much less of a risk. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys. I think we're gonna move on to the Jets.
No.
But you have a new quarterback, Howard. You have faith.
You have quarterback. All right. So last year's record, Howard, I know you love this one, 2-14.
Which is 2 wins too many.
Yeah.
Very impressive. New coach, Robert Sala. And I'm just going to go through the upside, downside, trust fall, rookie watch, and Joe's sleepers and Joe's IDP guys. So upside, for Ryan, it's Denzel Mims. For Josh, it's Denzel Mims. For downside, both have Jamison Crowder. Ryan and Josh both have Jamison Crowder. The trust fall, Ryan and Josh both have Corey Davis. Rookie to watch, Ryan and Josh both have Michael Carter. So there's no.
We don't agree all the time. Often, I promise.
I say, and Josh hates when this happens.
Here. There's no disagreements here. And then Joe
I need to find something to argue about. Damn it!
Well, there's like
Howard,
don't worry, I'll pit you guys against each other.
There's a limited number of options anyway from this team. You're like, well, who's the best? Well, who sucks? Well, let me give you these top 3 guys right here.
All right, Joe's sleeper. Joe Sleeper said he hates this entire team. Fair. But that being said, he picked Zach Wilson as a sleeper, which I definitely get. I don't love it, but I definitely understand.
Yeah.
And then Joe's IDP guy, Gerard Davis, he could potentially be in a Fred Warner type of role, says Joe. All right,
definitely
so
on the athleticism for
Howard,
him. So it'll be interesting
this is
if you can unlock him.
This is going to be a very fun discussion, Howard.
Yes.
Who is your player to watch?
Well, like I said, there are very limited options here, and I looked at who you guys all picked, and I didn't want to just go and grab the same guys, right? Because then we'd all be like, yeah, we all love these terrible guys the same. But here you go. I mean, it's like I said with Trevor Lawrence and young rookie quarterbacks leaning on their tight ends. What was it? 2 years ago, everybody was all in on Chris Herndon. He was going to be the guy. He was going to be the guy. He was going to get the targets. He was going to get the red zone work. It was going to be great.
Then Adam Gase happened.
As long as he plays. Oh, well, he's on the IL now. Well, he'll be back in week 8. And then week 9 came, and then week 10 came, and then week 11 came. And then we were like week 12. It was like, oh, hey, by that point, it was just he has had no time with the team. And then last year it was like, oh, that's right. Adam Gase is our coach. So we suck. We're the worst. We're the Jets. We're like, we got Adam Gase in his eyeballs. Ooh. But listen, here's the thing. Like your wide receivers are Corey Davis and Denzel Mims. Jamison Crowder will be coming out of the slot, maybe, because now they're going to try and work in Elijah Moore as well. Listen, I just don't know. I think Zach Wilson, who loves throwing that hero ball up, was that his pro day? They were like, look at that. He's running to his left and he's throwing to his right. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. Right? Into a guy who's not covered by anybody, and there's nobody chasing him to the left to begin with.
He's in shorts, man. Right? Come on.
So I was like, okay, look, see, Hutch was like, I'm out of here.
Yeah, he didn't even hear it.
He's just having some camera problems.
He's like, I'm out of here. You guys suck with your Jets. And
my dog just came upstairs and he was starting to rip up something up here, and I was concerned he might bark or something. So I was like, okay, I got to get you out of here, Blue.
Can we just admire Hutch's shirt for a second? Look at that. Look at that. Right? I mean, I don't know where he got that shirt from.
But clearly it was a wise decision.
Anyway, so
listen. In my league.
Wait a minute. What?
I got someone else.
Wait a minute. I missed that.
Fired.
Yes. I need to hear that again. Do I need a drink? I think I need a cocktail now. What did you just say, Hutch?
I said got this place 9th in my league.
Wow.
I'm just messing
down. Wow.
Now, what did Dad do again?
He grounded Hutch for like 3 weeks. No fantasy football for you.
Grounded.
Anyway, back to the Chris Herndon saga. For Hutch completely burned me like that, right? That's the worst part. Is like that immediately that comment that was like his dad's favorite part of the show.
Exactly.
He's like,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
suck
yeah,
at defender, man.
Oh, no, he listens to this show and he hears that, he's like instantly going to text me or call me. Hutch, that comment was the best.
He's like, that was awesome.
Yes, that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to stop everything he's doing at work and just go into his office
love
and be
that.
like, Hutch, that was insane.
Right. And I'm going to text Andy and I'm going to be like, see, you know what? Your boy's finished in this industry now.
He's done.
Finished.
No more retweets for you.
You think that kid's going to see his 15th birthday? No.
Oh, man. All right.
All right. So Herndon.
My face hurts from smiling so much.
Yeah, my mind's hurting a little bit too, man. Now,
I just want to hug you, Hutch. Oh, I got to go this way.
No, the most common.
Which way
Wait,
is
here we
it?
go. I'll make this easier for you, Howard. There you go.
Oh.
there we go. What's up,
Nope. Oh man. Anyway, Herndon, like by default, will probably get some of that red zone work, when they do throw it to the tight end. I don't know. I mean, again, I think this team is trash. I don't like the person. I hate Corey Davis.
Wow.
I just think he was completely overrated, and all the truthers are out there like, oh, he's such amazing wide receiver at Western Michigan. I'm like, listen, I don't mean to run down the program at Western Michigan too much, but I mean, come on, he's like sucks right now. And then, the injuries are a problem for him. He had a couple of good games with Tannehill. I'm not buying it. I'm just not buying Corey Davis, especially as a potential number one wideout for the Jets.
No way.
Denzel Mims, I mean, this team is still very much a work in progress. So, I mean, I've done 12, 14 best ball drafts already. I don't have Chris Herndon on a single one. I was just throwing the name out there, guys.
No, I like it. And the thing is, I actually am very interested in this Jets receiving core because, look, they have a bunch of different guys like Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, Chris Herndon. Like, somebody's going to step up and become the one. And I don't think it can be Corey Davis. I don't think it can be Chris Herndon. I do like Chris Herndon, but I don't think he can be the number one option with all these receivers here. So I think one of these two guys, either Denzel Mims or Elijah Moore, are going to step up as the one. And with Elijah Moore's size being, a little bit of an issue, he's like 5'9", 180 pounds. I think Denzel Mims could step up and be a true alpha of this offense. It just depends on who Zach Wilson meshes with first.
And through all flipping a coin. Okay.
Yeah, Mims. Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
That's why he's my upside guy. The ADP is just absolutely outrageous.
I mean, he's like free, basically, right?
He's
like, where
free.
is he?
Yeah.
Where is he?
Oh, like the 15th round. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Like he played 10 games? Yeah, he was a little banged up. I get it.
He's to be drafted in like the 8th round
because he finished as wide receiver 30 in a completely different offense. Like from a trusting standpoint, look, you went out and you gave Corey Davis a 3-year, what was it, $37 million or something along those lines, or whatever it was. Like, it was a big contract.
Don't blame me. Don't say you gave him.
I'm looking at you. Well, there.
Man,
Howard,
we're
right
beating up on Howard today, man.
I will turn off my camera right now.
But see, here's the thing. So in basically a very similar offense with Mike's brother Matt, Corey Davis had a 28% target share his second year in the league. So at the very minimum, he knows a lot of this terminology. And you see, this is what happens when new coaches take over teams. When Kyle Shanahan took over the 49ers, he signed Pierre Garçon, who he worked with in Washington. They look for these guys that understand their terminology, that can be sort of that veteran presence and be the player they lean on at first. So Corey Davis, for me, is probably going to have a fairly decent first 8 or 9 weeks. And then when Mims or Elijah Moore take that step up, that's when those guys are going to basically lead you into your fantasy playoffs and or potentially your championship if Zach Wilson becomes what we hope that he will be. Yes, Howard, you mentioned that YOLO ball will get him into trouble in the pros. It will. But here's the thing that I found the other day that I was like completely baffled when I saw. Zach Wilson had 10 rushing touchdowns last year at BYU. That's a completely underrated part of his game. Yeah, I couldn't believe it because everybody's talking about Zach Wilson not being athletic. And I'm like, you don't fall into 10 rushing touchdowns.
How many yards do you have, though? Do you know how many yards?
I mean, he averaged like 4 yards a carry,
11,
something like that.
Yeah. Tom Brady touchdowns.
Right.
I don't think it was anything that crazy.
Right.
But,
I'm just gonna be a selfish SOB right now, and I'm gonna take this one in myself.
Yanking it out of the running back's gut back.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you guys brought up a lot of key points. One of the things I like to think about is, and I lean heavily on this probably to a fault, is the scheme that the coaches are bringing with them. So I like to compare a lot of what we might see out of the Jets to what we saw out of San Francisco, just because head coach and offensive coordinator are coming from that tree. And what worries me for guys, we already talked about Jamison Crowder, but Elijah Moore, was San Francisco ran the third fewest 3 wide receiver sets in the NFL last year. So I don't know how much room there's going to be for a slot wide receiver. And while I understand Herndon is not George Kittle, he's just not. The practices that they're going to run are going to be tight end centric unless they're just planning on giving up on it. And that could generate a camaraderie between Zach Wilson and Chris Herndon, where if the coaches are saying, look at the tight end, look at the tight end, look at the tight end, and he's forced to because of what they're used to, it could play out very well for Herndon. I'm not a Herndon truther, and I was actually one of the guys last year who was on the other side of that, pushing back against them when they tried to say he was going to blow up last year, because I didn't see it happening under Adam Gase. But I did say if Gase left, I could see something happening, and so now I'm back on the train with Herndon. So I mean,
keep in mind, Herndon's blow up was with Sam Darnold during his rookie year.
Yeah,
rookie quarterbacks, they fall in love with tight ends because they're a safety valve. So there's definitely some, I don't want to say truth to Herndon, because again, all the truthers are just going to be like, "Oh, I told you so." But no, like there's something there. And again, like as you mentioned, Ryan, the familiarity in those types of offenses. They use George Kittle a lot. They scheme for the tight end. Herndon is athletic. He's not George Kittle, but he is athletic. If they want to work him into this system, there will be opportunity for him. And at his current price, he's free.
And as we are going to bring up a lot about these 3 teams, they're going to have to throw the ball a lot.
Guys, can I go back to Zach Wilson really quick? So I just looked up his rushing stats. It's closer to 11 than I actually thought it'd be. It's 70 attempts for 254 yards. So that's a 3.6 yards per carry and 10 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That's 254 yards and 10 touchdowns. That's a crazy pace.
That's 11 touchdowns on 70 carries is also a very crazy pace.
Yeah, I would not expect him to run for 70 yards, but you know what? He's going to scramble a lot behind that offensive line. 70 attempts, 254 yards.
Yeah. And then 10 touchdowns. That's not going to happen. That's not a sustainable pace at all.
No, he's definitely not going to run the ball 70 times, but he will scramble by default. But I will say, I think they like the left side of their offensive line. Getting Elijah Vera Tucker next to Mekhi Becton, that's going to be that like running lane for P. Ryan and Carter and Ty Johnson and whatever the hell they get out of Tevin Coleman, because let's face it, homeboy's washed. But that's going to be where they run the football. And Michael Carter averaged over 6 yards per carry at North Carolina. I'm very curious to see.
Yeah, but everybody knows they're going to the left side. They're running to the left side. There we go.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson's going to roll out to the right.
It's moving a 370-pound brick wall in Mekhi Becton. No.
Who, you know what? I mean, listen, I love Mekhi Becton. I think he's fantastic. But how many times did we see him come out of games last year also? Because when you are that fat and I'm kind of putting on that. I got like quarantine weight still on me, right? There's like 300 quarantines on me right now. There's the wear and tear on the knees and the ankles, and that's something that we also have to watch, because if they continuously run it over to that side, towards Becton, and he's going to end up, grabbing defensive linemen or whatever, it's gonna have some wear and tear on him for sure.
Well, I think having a reliable piece like Vera Tucker next to him, I think should help.
Yes.
I say, fellow fat guy, I can speak to the added pressure on the knees and the ankles. I have the crutches here because I'm pretty sure I tore my meniscus.
I broke my foot last year, right in the beginning. So
we had to pull Ryan off of IR to fill in tonight. So
yeah, exactly.
He'll be back on for the next 10 days, though. So
today's podcast was sponsored by Percocet and Oxycodone.
Yes. Oh man. Okay.
Not a sponsor.
Not yet.
You gotta preface that. Not yet.
Okay, guys. So one last question before we move on. Who leads this team in receiving yards? I know that's a terrible question. To try to answer, but I want to hear it.
That's adorable.
As the one person who doesn't hate Corey Davis, I will happily and confidently say Corey Davis.
I know that was a terrible question. But
I mean, Josh made a good point with the fact of leaning on Davis a little bit in the earlier run there also. So I'll side with Ryan and say Corey Davis too.
I'm taking Mims.
Yeah, I think it's really just going to depend on how big his second half.
Mims might have 600 yards, but he could still lead the team.
That's true.
Yeah,
absolutely terrible.
Oh, that's so mean. My number one wide receiver.
I too will say Davis, but again, I think a lot of it will come in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Because I really do. I think he is better as a complement. He's better as a 2 or a 1B.
Yeah.
And if Mims really becomes what they feel that he can be, and if he becomes that 1, Corey Davis will be good for this team, and Zach Wilson has a bright future.
Yeah, because the thing is, when A.J. Brown was out a few games last season, when A.J. Brown was out and Corey Davis was had the opportunity as the 1, he literally had nothing. He had no games above 60 yards.
Yeah, those were those DFS weeks where everyone's like, you got to start Corey Davis. Yeah.
And he had Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. He had a pretty good quarterback. And then when A.J. Brown came back, he instantly had a 100-yard game. When the game A.J. Brown come back, he had a 100-yard game. So it's just Corey Davis can't be – it's kind of like Juju, but he's definitely a very different receiver than Juju. But he can't be trusted as the number 1 option in offense. So I am with you, Josh, that he probably will be targeted a lot in the first half. But I think Denzel Mims could break out early. I think he could just take over. Because Corey Davis, I think, is going to disappoint if he's the number 1 option. He's going to really disappoint.
Yeah. Definitely an option.
Definitely disappointing.
All right. Yeah. All right, guys. Definitely disappointing. All right, so let's move on to the most disappointing team and the worst team in the NFL, the Houston Texans.
So bad.
Last year, somehow they went 4-12. Dave Culley is their new coach. Upside for both Ryan and Josh, it's Phillip Lindsey. Downside for both Ryan and Josh, it's David Johnson. The trust fall player is Brandon Cooks. And the rookie to watch for Ryan is Nico Collins. And for Josh, it's Brevin Jordan.
Homer pick.
Joe's sleeper, literally nobody. But that being said, it's Randall Cobb. And then Joe's IDP guy is Zach Cunningham. All right. So, Howard, who is your player to watch?
You know what? I'm going to go with Nico Collins here. I think, when you look at the receiving core, Kiki Kute, Brandon Cooks, who's Randall Cobb. These guys are all they're all what, 5'9" and shorter.
They're all slot wide receivers,
right? Nico Collins, the only guy on that roster who's over 6 feet tall. So, I'll kind of put a little stock into him, maybe for some jump balls in the end zone. They don't really have that bona fide tight end. I know that Jordan Akins was supposed to be that guy, but I think they're better off with the with the jump ball and playing more of a vertical game. Now, a lot's going to depend on whether Watson even plays or not, because if Watson doesn't play, then you can take your Nico Collins shares in redraft and flush them down the toilet. Dynasty's still fine, but listen, I think that there's something to be said. Size does matter in the NFL. It really does. And you can't sit there. You're not the Patriots. You're not running an offensive scheme like, you got Julian Edelman and a bunch of other mice running around out there in the secondary. You need some size. You need some, a vertical asset inside that red zone. So I think Nico Collins could be that guy.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how much I don't know what the odds I don't know how good the chances are that Nico Collins takes over as the 1 this year, because I still think Brandon Cooks can still be a good 1 of an offense. But I think Nico Collins in his rookie year has a great opportunity to be the number 2. Yeah. And this team is going to have to throw a ton. This team is going to have to throw. This defense is the worst. I mean, this team is the worst. But they're going to have to throw a lot. And Nico Collins as a number 2 option could be pretty fantasy productive.
And I mean, yeah, just combining what you and Howard said is exactly why I had him as my rookie to watch. Is he's huge. He's 6'4", over 200 pounds. He was used as a downfield red zone threat in college at Michigan. Even if they don't have Deshaun Watson at quarterback, and Howard, you kind of hit this on the head, that we don't know quite how it's all going to play out if Deshaun Watson's out, but they're still going to have to throw the ball a ton. And Nico Collins, let's say it's Davis Mills, there's a very good chance Davis Mills and Nico Collins are going to build chemistry in these rookie camps. They're the 2 third-round picks by the Texans, and we've seen it before. And I always forget the kid's name, but there was the kid from the Jets who came in and immediately latched on to Robbie Anderson because they had worked together so much on the practice squad. This was like 4 or 5 years ago. But you've seen it before where guys who've meshed in preseason and rookie camp get to play together later in the season, and they end up just throwing to each other the entire time. And that's something you could see happen later on in the season, where I'm not saying in a redraft to go get Nico Collins. For the love, do not go draft Nico Collins in redraft. But in Dynasty, he's probably falling 3rd, 4th in rookie drafts, maybe later than that. And he's a guy who you might want to look to add in redraft or DFS later on in the season if you see a spark start to happen.
Yeah, I went in a different direction on my rookie to watch because
I know why you did.
Obligated to talk about my Miami Hurricanes pro players. That's why I like Brevin Jordan. But I'm a big Nico Collins guy. I've been trying to scoop him up in every Dynasty rookie draft this offseason, and it's usually right around the 3rd round where he's going.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is I feel like he fell in the real NFL draft because he opted out of 2020. I mean, he had 13 touchdowns over 2018 and 2019 in Michigan. Wasn't really anything eye-popping, but he averaged, I believe it was over 16 yards per reception in 2018 and almost 20 yards per reception in 2019. So he knows how to get down the field. He can use that size to his advantage. And Howard, just like you mentioned, they got a bunch of short guys. I mean, it's basically like
that was the running joke last year.
There you go. Exactly. I mean, and as much as I love Brandon Cooks as one of the most underrated wide receivers in nowadays NFL, when he's really been asked to be that number 1 guy where he doesn't have a ton outside of him, he always finds a way to get hurt and miss games. Because he can't be the guy that goes over the middle and takes those types of hits because he's just not built for it. But he can get down the field and utilize that speed to get behind defenses. The way that I have the Texans statted out right now, good God, they're going to cycle through about 6 quarterbacks because I can't imagine that Tyrod Taylor is going to play more than 4 games. I just can't see it. The guy is just terrible. They'll find a way to give Davis Mills some snaps. You have very limited draft capital, and they spent their first pick on a quarterback. That tells me that they are not expecting Deshaun Watson to play this year. And if that's the case, this entire offense is in trouble. I'm all for dart throws with Nico, but just like you guys said, redraft, I tend to stay away from rookie wide receivers anyway in redraft because they're eventually going to hit the waiver wire after about 3 weeks anyway. And then you can scoop them up when you start to see improvements and where they start to that trajectory. But yeah, this whole entire team is just going to be bad. Like, bad.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Dave Culley because he's a scapegoat. He's going to get fired after this year. I really do feel that.
So something that popped out to me on your list, Ryan and Josh both put Phillip Lindsey as their upside guy. I mean, I do understand why you would put that, but what is your reasoning? I just want you to explain it a little bit.
I just think Phillip Lindsey is an underrated guy in most NFL circles at this point. He's proven time and time again he could get it done. Then he, of course, got put in a bad situation for fantasy last year in Denver when they bring Melvin Gordon in. And so now all of a sudden he's splitting carries and he was held out of the end zone. I think he scored 1 touchdown last year, but he was still over 4 yards per carry, had 500 yards, didn't get to show what he had shown previously in the passing game. I think last year has made a lot of people forget that Phillip Lindsey was James Robinson before James Robinson was James Robinson. And so Lindsey is going to get a chance now with a pretty well washed up David Johnson, where what incentive is David Johnson going to have to break his back for the Texans this year? Little to none. I won't be surprised if David Johnson is a full Leonard Fournette and cut before the season even starts. Lindsey,
productive for them.
And that's absolutely true. But there's a big difference between being productive with Deshaun Watson and Will Fuller and guys out there who are other weapons where it's just David Johnson now. Sure. Where I think Lindsey could go in there and shine a light on this offense and actually score touchdowns on a team that isn't going to score a lot of touchdowns. And I think we just forget how good Lindsey was for those first 2 years because of how bad things were last year.
Yep. David Johnson is cheeks. That's basically why I have Phillip Lindsey as an upside. He is long past his prime, and his prime literally lasted one season. This is an offense they like. If they really do implement a lot of what they did in Baltimore with this team, the running backs still are not going to see targets. And that was my biggest gripe against David Johnson last year. Everybody was like, oh, David Johnson, he's going to bring a receiving element into this team. Coaches are stubborn assholes. They want players to fit their scheme. They do not alter their scheme around their players. It is just fact. David Johnson still was not the weapon in the receiving game that so many people expected him to be. That's why Duke Johnson's career went to die in Houston, because Duke Johnson is a great receiver, and they still did not throw the man the football. Like, it's baffling to me. They're not going to throw these guys the football. And right now, if you ask me who the best runner on that team is, it is Phillip Lindsey, hands down, and his ADP is reflecting that. So I would much rather take the dart throw on Phillip Lindsey than spend whatever it is to spend on David Johnson.
Okay, so I agree with both of you. David Johnson is gassed. He's done. We saw it last year. It was fine. Phillip Lindsey's biggest problem is that this dude cannot pass block. He cannot pass block to save his life. Ranked somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think 141 was his overall ranking as far as a pass blocker goes. Now, if Ryan is right and they do cut David Johnson beforehand, you could see Phillip Lindsey as the quote unquote lead back, and all of a sudden he's the guy to take it between the tackles. But the reason that they brought in Mark Ingram, we can't forget about Mark Ingram. Yeah. His pass blocking is very strong, and he might not see the targets, but his pass blocking is strong enough that you could see Mark Ingram on third downs and have Phillip Lindsey actually be that early down back. I know that everybody just assumed that Phillip Lindsey was the third down back in Denver, and that's what his role was. But it was Devonta Booker was actually a better pass catcher and a better pass blocker than Lindsey. So they do need to get rid of David Johnson, get him out of the way. You make Phillip Lindsey your lead back, and then you have Mark Ingram come in as your third down, your pass blocking guy. He can still catch a couple of passes, can take it to the outside. The reason a guy like Duke Johnson didn't work, aside from the fact that he sucks. And
Howard, we're going to be fighting here in a minute.
Duke Johnson was like a disaster. The dude couldn't cut it in Cleveland. He couldn't cut it in Houston. He's terrible. He's overrated.
Poorly utilized.
He's overrated. But Deshaun Watson doesn't need a pass catching running back. That's the thing. Yep. Like, if you want to talk about why a guy isn't being utilized properly, it's because Deshaun Watson will happily extend plays with his legs as opposed to just hitting the check down and dumping it off to his running back. That's not the kind of game that Watson likes to play. Maybe that changes around a little bit this year, obviously, if Watson doesn't play. But yeah, I still I like Phillip Lindsey, as a guy to grab here, but I think people who take him in PPR who automatically just assume that he's going to be that pass catching running back are going to be disappointed with him.
Yeah, I've never understood the Phillip Lindsey as a pass catching back. Just because he's smaller, like that doesn't. I understand certain like pass catching backs have a size profile, but that's not Phillip Lindsey. And Howard, to your point, out of 152 graded pass blockers at running back per Pro Football Focus, Lindsey was 122.
Oh, 122.
Yeah. So in other words,
that's still terrible.
I'm sure that's only because 21 guys retired or left football.
No. Well, and that's the thing. And I'm saying this as these are guys that, they only, this is factoring in guys that only played 1 game, 2 games, 4 games. Yeah. Like, there's, if you take out all of that, he's still
terrible.
Exactly. Yeah.
Really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like 77th when they do the 20% of whatever the number is or whatever. Like he was 77th out of like 90 or something.
Yep. And that's one thing you can't do is you can't get your quarterback killed, especially if they're going to throw a rookie like Davis Mills out there. They don't want to have Lindsey out there just letting him get blindsided every play. So
yeah, if you see Lindsey out there on an obvious passing down, he's probably getting the football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really how it boils down. That's why he got thrown passes in Denver, because he was the number 1 read on that particular play.
Yep.
But yeah, one of my biggest worries is something I touched on is I just don't know how motivated David Johnson is going to be to play for this team. David Johnson is in his own mind still got to be a top 10 running back in the NFL. And you're playing for a team that is playing for the first pick of the draft. So
they're not really playing for it. They're not really playing for it. They're just going to be given it.
Yeah. Yeah, we thought that about the Jets last year, and
exactly.
they messed that up.
Exactly. It's never in the bag, guys.
The Jets beat the Rams in that one game. Dude,
that was the curse of Adam Gase, Howard.
That was stunning.
Which is why I'm all in on Sam Darnold this year. He will be on every single one of my teams. Like I'll draft him as a second QB. But that dude is going to ball, right? Yep. Him, DJ Moore, they're going to be like lockstep.
Oh yeah, dude, he's plenty of upside this year.
Oh, I love him. I think in leagues where you want to wait to draft a quarterback late, Darnold's going to be an excellent one to get towards the end of the draft.
Yeah, and we know the rapport that he has with Robbie Anderson, and look how great Robbie Anderson was last year.
Yep.
And now he has CMC. Remember, he's still CMC. Mm-hmm. This is going to be a run-first team. He's going to stay comfortable, and he's going to be able to dump it off to CMC a lot. And it's just going to keep Darnold comfortable and he's going to let him play.
I'm actually worried that Sam Darnold is going to suck only because he's going to be so starstruck because he's not going to know what to do with all this talent around him.
Oh, no. Week 1, 325 yards, 3 touchdown passes. He's going to run
Isn't it
one
against the Jets in week 1?
Yes, it is.
Against the Jets in week 1, right?
100%. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to ball out for that first game right there. And then he's just going to sit there. He's just going to be like, oh.
He's like,
I hope that this is what football's like. I have one share of him in Dynasty. I'm going to be like, all right, first round pick, give me.
Right? Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Gonna be fun. Be fun.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch.
Texans are going to be rough.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch them lose, like, terribly.
I don't know. I don't like to root against teams, but it's just obviously there's the whole off the field stuff with Watson. But even if Watson plays,
they traded away DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson, and then they released JJ Watt, who are both now on the Cardinals together, which is actually ironic.
They just need to clean house and get rid of everything from ownership through general manager. Like you get rid of the front office and their and that franchise will be turned around.
It is a new GM, right? It's the kid from New England.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Horrible. It's the whatchamacallit?
The Belichick tree. You've got Belichick on your resume,
he's
and
not
you'll
even
get a
the
job.
Belichick tree. This guy, like, have you guys have we really dived into this front office here for Houston? Because this is
all I know is if you're so bad that you get Andre Johnson to speak out negatively of you, you have a problem because that man is like a mute. He does not talk to the media at all. And Andre Johnson, who's one of the great receivers of his generation and arguably in Houston history, came out and said, get rid of Jack Easterby
Yeah.
then you will see improvement. That's how you know there's a
problem. Caserio is one of Easterby's guys too. Like that's the problem. The problem is McNair is for lack of a better way to say it, Cal McNair is an old school, disgusting, racist. Get him the hell away from this team. You know what? If the NBA can push out the old owner of the Clippers for making racist comments, Cal McNair needs to go from owning the Houston Texans. And then he's got Easterby, and Easterby's got his ear. And we all know Easterby, who started off as a team chaplain and all of a sudden kind of like sidled his way in without any kind of NFL experience. And all of a sudden now Easterby is some executive in the NFL. And then Easterby is the one who hired Caserio. Yeah. And Caserio is one of his boys. They were in New England together. So it's not even like that's the problem, is that it's not even the Belichick tree coming to Houston. I mean, they tried that already with Bill O'Brien, right?
You actually hit it well on the head, because before the off-field stuff, this whole thing started when Watson gave them a very small list of people he wanted them to interview, and they straight up refused to even give them an interview. So,
yeah, Robert Taylor was one of those guys, right? Now he's on the Jets.
Yep.
I think that was the guy Watson wanted the most, right? Is that true? Or
I hadn't heard that far into it. But like I said, it's just, if you truly believe this guy was your star quarterback and you just paid him the year before, why would you not believe that? Why do you not interview his guys? Like, what kind of old school racist backwards thinking is that like, I'm not going to let this guy tell me how to run my team? It's like, no, you are, if you want to win.
Especially look, he's being paid. You're paying him a lot of money, and he's a star quarterback. He can kind of do what he wants. Like he's a star quarterback. He's a loved quarterback in the NFL. Like, he can kind of just do what he wants. And if you don't want to go with it,
let's use past tense with that, Hutch.
Yeah,
I think Watson has kind of a bad rep.
Yeah, sorry. What? Yeah, he's gotten a bad rep lately.
Yeah, at this point, I think we just don't even talk about Deshaun Watson.
Not as of late. Sorry.
There you go.
Not as of late, but he was.
Yes, when this whole thing started with Caserio, there was light at the end of the tunnel for Deshaun Watson. That tunnel has collapsed. So.
Oh yeah. Man,
I think that might be a good time to end the show.
Right? Because all three of us, the wheels are spinning. We're like, what kind of really sick freaking jokes can we make here? Oh, wait, we got Hutch here now. We can't make those jokes.
I know the one person.
We're trying to be PG today, guys.
Right? I'm pretty sure I'm the one person who's not thinking about that.
There you go.
And
you are correct, sir.
Good point there.
For that.
And make sure it stays that way.
That's right.
Yes, for as long
if you
as
did start
possible.
making the jokes, you'd be like, oh, hi. Oh, yep. Yes. Hello, Andy. Yes. Hello, Andy. I'm sorry I've corrupted your son. I'm really, really sorry. It won't happen again.
That's awesome.
Okay. Yep. Your dad says I can't play with you anymore.
Oh, man. Oh, Howard. All right, guys. Any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Houston is going to be so bad.
Horrible.
That's a good thought. Good thought.
Don't draft any Texans, any of them, even Phillip Lindsey. Just stay away.
None of them.
I think Brandon Cooks can be drafted.
I don't know where he's going right now, so it'll all come down to value.
Yeah. Where he's going, it does. But I think he'll definitely be fantasy relevant.
That's true.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's all for this episode of No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. Thank you guys for tuning in, and big thanks to Howard Bender for joining us. Howard, please remind everyone where they can find you, and maybe tell us a little bit about what you're working on lately.
All right, let's see. You can find me all over the pages at fantasyalarm.com. You can hit me up on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy. I am on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm also on the Ante Up podcast with Adam Ronis. That's Monday through Friday. You can find that on Spotify and iTunes, and I think Pandora actually as well. What am I working on? You can also find my fantasy baseball and football stuff in the New York Post. I'm working on some super secret stuff here that I'm not allowed to reveal, but I'll tell you what, it's coming up for this football season, and it's damn good.
Yes.
I know a little bit about. I think I know a little bit about what you're talking about, and I agree. It's going to be fantastic.
I don't think I know, but it's going to be fantastic anyway. It's Howard.
We'll talk off air.
Yeah. All right. All right, man. And real quick, just I was talking to these guys before the show, and they were so kind to let me, put myself out there a little bit. You can follow me on Twitter at TYFMNFL, the Young Fantasy Mind NFL. And guys, I have a new website coming out soon. It's going to be theyoungfantasymind.com. It's dropping on Tuesday when my next episode comes out. It'll be launched, and it's going to have my official rankings on there, top 30 receivers, top 30 running backs, and top 15 quarterbacks and tight ends. It's going to be awesome. And I've been working on that website. I've been working on those rankings for a while now, and I just can't wait to get that website out there.
I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. Howard, it's been an absolute joy having you on. And Hutch, you have filled in brilliantly, and you've left the Joe diatribes to the side, and I greatly appreciate that.
Who's
Joe? I love you, buddy.
All right.
Everybody, go follow both of these gentlemen. They're absolutely
please.
fantastic.
Yeah, our Twitter
will not
handles
be disappointed.
are names, so you can go just follow them there. All right, guys, that's gonna be it. If you haven't subscribed to the Club Fantasy YouTube channel, please get on it, youtube.com/ClubFantasyFFL. You can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. The site is filled with our look inside articles. These guys have been writing articles. Look, the episodes we're talking about with the teams, they're basically just writing the article version of this podcast, and I can't wait to go in and see some of that stuff. It's going to be awesome. And the Jaguars are dropping Monday, the Jets today, Wednesday, and the Texans will release on Friday. One more time, make sure you follow our awesome guest, Howard Bender, on Twitter at RotoBuzzGuy, and be sure to join us next week as I'm returning as host since Joe needs another week off, of course, Joe. Oh, lazy Joe. And we're continuing our Look Inside series, and we're talking about the Falcons, the Bengals, and the Eagles. 3 not as trash teams as the teams we talked today. Sorry, Howard Bender, for bringing you on for that show. But we'll be talking with the Fantasy Football's lead writer, injury expert, and DFS analyst, Matthew Betts. We'll see you all, guys. We'll see you guys next week with that episode. Peace out, everybody.